Okay, so today we are talking about financial literacy in mathematics. So, financial literacy is a huge topic, and basically, it is your knowledge about money. And we are going to talk about making money. And our warm up question is sort of like something we could have given you for your exit card yesterday, and that is a couple of definitions. So, what do the terms time and a half and double time mean? So I'm going to tell you a couple of stories, one about time and a half and one about double time. So way back, well before you were born, stores were closed on Sunday, and I used to work in a grocery store. And then all of a sudden the Ontario government said, you know what, we're going to open on Sunday. And some stores chose to, and some stores chose not to. And the grocery store that I worked with chose to open. And if any employees decided that they wanted to work on Sundays, they got time and a half. And because I was a student, of course, I was all over that. And time and a half meant that, and I'm going to pick sort of a nice number, it means that if I was being paid $18 an hour, which I was not, but if I was paid $18 an hour as my regular hourly wage, then time and a half would be I'd get the $18 and then I'd also get half more. So on Sundays, I would actually make $27 an hour if this were my wage. So that means you're going to get time, your regular, and a half. So there's an example of what time and a half means. Now my mom, when I was growing up, was a nurse. And although she had 2 kids at home, myself and my brother, she would always choose to work 7 o'clock at night till 7 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Eve night, so that my brother and I would have to wait until at least noon hour on Christmas Day to open everything but our stockings, because my mom would be sleeping because she'd worked all night. But she worked all night because she could get double time, because nobody wants to work at Christmas, so they pay a little bit extra, or did when I was growing up. So if we use my $18 an hour, which is probably less than what she made, if she made $18 an hour, regular, then when she worked her holiday shifts, she would get $18 an hour and then double it. So all the kids in my neighborhood would call up on the telephone and say, hey, what'd you get? And we wouldn't even have opened our presents yet because Mom slept in, because she was making a ton of money by spending Christmas Eve with patients. And she worked with kids, so she thought it was super important. So time and a half means actually that you could take this and times it by 1.5 time and a half, as opposed to double time, where you're timesing by 2. So I'm going to take a little pause and leave it here so that maybe you can write down all the details about earning money, and I'll be back in a minute to make sure we read through it with maybe some little stories. So the first type of earning money situation is what normally happens when you have a job in high school. So it says here, when you work in a job that pays an hourly wage, so this is usually how you get paid when you have a job in high school, you receive a certain dollar amount for each hour you work. You may receive a higher overtime rate for hours you work beyond a stated number of hours per week. So if you work over 36 hours, for instance, or over 40 hours, they will give you more money for every hour that you worked than what you normally get. But normally, you get an hourly wage. And we write that as some amount of dollars per hour. So there's a dollar figure in here. Now, I don't even know what minimum wage is now, but you might start at minimum wage and eventually build yourself up. But hourly wage is what you normally make. It's normally what we talk about when we're talking about making money in a high school job. It's really common, so it happens outside of high school jobs too. So for instance, I made an hourly wage when I worked in the grocery store, and my mom actually made an hourly wage when she worked at the hospital. So the next type of payment is called a salary. And when you work in a job that pays a salary, you receive a certain dollar amount per week or per month or per year. And you may be expected to be at work within certain hours of the day, but earnings are not directly linked to the number of hours you work. So a perfect example of that is the job of a teacher. We get paid a certain dollar amount for the year. So that's how teachers work out. We get paid for a year. And it doesn't matter how many hours we work in a day, and it doesn't matter if we work weekends. If we're in school, we have to be in the school from a certain hour in the morning till a certain hour after school. And if we put in extra hours, we don't get extra pay. So it's not like earning an hourly wage where you would have an overtime rate. We just work until we're done our work and get paid a certain amount no matter what. The last type that we're going to talk about here is commissions. And commissions, and this was on your exit card research project thing yesterday, commissions are often earned by salespersons. So people that I know who make a commission are real estate agents. So when you sell a house, the more expensive the house is, the more money you make as a real estate agent. Sometimes people who work at, and I'm not so sure that this is true now, but places like Best Buy, where they're selling high-end equipment like TVs or a stereo system or a computer or cell phones, so technology, they often get paid a commission. And a commission isn't an amount per hour. It isn't an amount per week. It's not an amount per month. It's not an amount per year. It is a certain percentage, which is why it's so important to learn what to do with percent, because there's a whole lot of jobs that pay you a percentage. And we're going to look at that at some point today. So again, I'm going to do a little pause and get ready for the next slide, which is to look at, and it's really blurry right now, so I have to make the look a little bit different, to look at the following graphs. So we're going to look at these 8 graphs and describe in words what method or methods of payment a worker is receiving. And then we can identify a type of job that commonly follows this method. So we'll get to this in a sec. I'm going to pause for a minute. So something that happens a lot in math and a lot in life is that somebody will present a graph to you, and what'll happen is the reader of the graph, whether it's you or someone else, will not look at what's being talked about. And I mention that because the first 4 graphs all have weekly pay and hours worked, and then the next 4 graphs have weekly pay, so we're always talking about how much money we're going to make in a week, and it has weekly sales. So let's start looking at the first 4. And we may not follow these instructions for absolutely everything, but we're certainly going to talk about what method or methods of payment a worker is receiving. and maybe for a couple of them, identify a type of job that commonly follows this method. So this one right here, if you take a look, because this is one single line the whole time that is going up, so it's increasing, it means that the rate of change is the same thing all the way along. So no matter what it is, the rate of change is the same. So what it's saying is that at the 10-hour mark, we make this much, and at the 20-hour mark, our weekly pay increases, and at the 30-hour mark, our weekly pay increases. So this would be a perfect example of you being paid an amount of dollars per hour. So as the number of hours you work goes up, your pay goes up. But the other thing is, this line goes through the corner. And that means if you work 0 hours, you get $0. And that's pretty normal. So a good example of that would be my job back in high school. Where I was a grocery store cashier. So, this is one we may not be familiar with. Let's just talk about how we're being paid here. This says our pay is never changing. Remember back to when we were graphing stories, this meant that we weren't moving. This means your pay is not moving. This is a great deal. This means that we are going to get paid the same amount of money no matter how many hours we work. So if you work 0 hours, you get that much money. If you work 10 hours, you get the same amount of money. If you work 20 hours, you get the same amount of money. If you work 20, 30, 40, 50 hours, you get the same amount of money. Let's see if I can erase this without my words. Okay, next one. Maybe you're a little unfamiliar with this. It looks a whole lot like this one. And it certainly is to a point. It certainly is the case that this is dollars per hour. It's steadily increasing. So if you work more hours, you get more money, as opposed to this one, where if you work more money, work more hours, you don't get any more money. But this one doesn't start at 0. Which means when you work 0 hours, they're actually going to give you some money. So there's a starting amount. This one, again, starts at 0. So this, if you look at, this is a line, so this means same amount of money, same dollars per hour, from here to here. And if you take a look at where this all of a sudden starts going up a little steeper, that's at the 10, 20, 30, 40 hour mark. And then what happens is it does this. And that means you have more dollars per hour. This is where usually overtime kicks in. Overtime. So a place where overtime kicks in might be, I can think of some of my friends who worked at General Motors, which is the car plant that used to be in Oshawa. And I think it's back up running in some way. So General Motors, you'd work until 40 hours and you get paid the same amount of money for every hour. And then if they need you for more than 40 hours, you get to increase and make more money per hour. Okay, so those are the ones that you're probably most familiar with. These ones maybe less familiar with. So this says, as we increase our weekly sales, so as we sell more stuff for our company, whether it's TVs or cell phones or real estate, this is an example of commission, where it's the same percentage every time. So every time you sell a house, you get a percentage, you get a cut of that house, and that's what you take home. That's what goes to the bank for you. But unfortunately, if you sell $0 worth of merchandise for your company, then it definitely, it says here, that you are going to make $0. So something that I know works like this, not necessarily real estate, something that actually works like this is people who call you on the telephone, so telemarketers. That's why when you tell them to go away, they're so angry. They just lost money because you didn't buy something from them. Whether it's duct cleaning or whatever it is they called about. Okay, let's go to this one. So this is fairly typical as well. This happens a lot. This is another example of commission. And this is the same percentage because it's the same line all the way along. That's really not very good for same. But this place is kind of nice. So this might be an example of, I meant that to be blue, not that it matters, an electronics store. Because sometimes they say, you know what, some days, some weeks are going to be poorer than others. You're not going to sell as much. So we're going to guarantee you that you're going to get some money to start with. So if you sell $0 worth of their merchandise, you're going to make something. In this case, they're going to be nice enough to give you $100 a week, and then you can make more. So in this one, you're going to make nothing. In this one, you're going to make $100 a week. Okay, the next one I want to do is this one here because it's most closely related. All these ones kind of look the same. And this is another example of commission. Commission meaning a percentage. So you're going to get a percentage from here to here. And then when you sell a large amount of stuff, whatever the company decides for you, when you sell a large amount of stuff, they're going to give you a higher percent for everything beyond that. So if you are at an electronics store, for instance, and you sell $10,000 worth of product, up to $10,000, you get a certain percentage. And then if you actually get people to buy more than $10,000 worth of merchandise, they will pay a higher amount. Or you get paid a higher amount, sorry. But unfortunately, because they're giving you some incentive, because they're giving you kind of a bonus for doing really good selling, if you sell $0 worth of merchandise, you are going to make $0 to take home and put in your wallet. So this is a lot like this one, except this one was no matter how many hours you work, you're going to get paid the exact same amount. With this one, no matter how much you sell, you get the same amount. So somebody who sells a lot of stuff for a company gets paid the same amount of somebody who doesn't sell anything, which might not be a great company to work for. Now, there is a little bit of a difference in this one because there's another line up here which says but if you sell lots of stuff, lots of goods, lots of merchandise, they will pay you more, and you know exactly what that is. So if this is 100, this is 200, they'll give you $300 instead of $100, which is kind of nice. So there's a little bit of incentive. There's a little bit of reason to work hard. Okay, so take a little break. There's a lot of talking in this note. I need a little break from talking. See, it's going longer than the average note. Let's look at a question in a minute. The question will look like this. So we're going to do a little bit of calculation here. Okay, so I'm being kind of sneaky in this question because I've got a bunch of follow-up questions, and they're all hidden. We have to do the first one first. And the first question says, the graph shows Renee's weekly earnings. It's based on hours rather than sales, which is important to notice. And the question says, is Renee paid a wage or a salary? Explain how you know. So if I go back to these four graphs, this is an example of a salary. This is our teacher example. You get paid the same amount of money whether you work a few hours or a lot of hours. Now, the thing is, as a teacher, you can't work 0 hours. That's the important thing to notice. But salaries go across and don't change at all, as opposed to when you get paid a wage, you have an increasing line of some sort. So I can say that this is a wage because the line is increasing. So that explains how I know. So let's uncover that second question. So the second question says, use the information from the graph to determine her rate of pay. Now, because this is a graph, and we've been through this a few times, because this is a graph, that means to calculate the rate of change, we'll have to do rise over run. So I'm doing B up here, which also means I need to make myself a little rate of change triangle. So I need a pretty point. So I know that's 0, 0, and this 10 lines up perfectly with the 200. So I'm going to make my little triangle in here. And a reminder that this is the rise, and this is the run. So the run is from 0 to 10, so that's 10 and it's hours. And the rise is from the bottom, so 0 to 200, so that's 200, and I know it's dollars because dollars is there. So if I put rise over run, and I finish off the division, that means that Renee is getting paid $20 an hour. So, let's see what the next question is. If E is Renee's weekly earnings in dollars and H is the number of hours she worked in a week, create an equation that could be used to calculate Renee's weekly wage if she were to work over 40 hours in a week. And we've done this before. We need to figure out the starting point to pull this off. There's your starting point. And they've picked the letters for us. E is how much she earns, and H is what her hours are. So the way we set this up earlier was we said the amount of earnings is, we start at 0, and we're going to go up by $20 every time she works an hour. Now, I am not going to leave it written like that because I know that zeros don't need to be there. So I can write that. So the questions, even though there might be lots of them, might be quick ones. Next question. Not many more with this one. Next question is, Renee is paid time and a half for hours worked over 40 hours per week. How much does she get paid per hour for time and a half? So, if she gets paid $20 an hour, and I go back to the first slide where we talked about me making time and a half on Sundays, we can either do this calculation or we can times by time and a half, so 1.5. So if I take $20 an hour and times it by 1.5, I will get $30 an hour. So when she works more than 40 hours, every hour that she works over that, she's going to get $30 an hour instead of $20 an hour. Great deal if you have time to do it. Time and a half is paid $30 an hour. Okay, we're at our last question. Hey, that wasn't so bad. Sketch a graph of Renee's weekly earnings if she works 60 hours in a week. So I am going to sketch it on here, and the reason I'm going to sketch it on there is because this is 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. And I know she's going to be paid $20 an hour up to the 40-hour mark. So we've got that already done. We need to do $30 an hour after that. So what I want to find out is, and I know this is going to be, and it says sketch. So all I need to do to sketch instead of graph is to make that steeper, because, and I'm going to write this in green, steeper equals more money per hour. So that's just a little sketch. That's like these, where we didn't have to worry about the numbers on the side. We just had to look at the shape and figure out what was going on. Now there's one last set of questions. So I'm going to say look at the graph above for the sketch. I am going to plop up this one and then take another little break. Okay, last questions for today. This graph shows Kenji's weekly earnings. Describe in words how Kenji is paid for his work. Explain your reasoning. So, I don't know if you noticed this. Kept this weekly earnings, changed this to total value of sales. What that means is that Kenji is paid commission because his pay is decided by how much he sells. So unlike this one, which is decided by how many hours you work, this one is decided by how much a person sells. This question says, what is Kenji's guaranteed weekly salary? So he is guaranteed, whether he sells anything for this company or not, he is guaranteed to make this amount of money. We just have to figure out what this is. So 2 ticks to 100, so that must be 50, 100, 150, 200, 250. So he is guaranteed $250. So if he sells nothing, he's going to get $250. If he sells something, he's going to make more than $250. So let's see what the next question is. Using the graph, estimate the value of sales that will provide weekly earnings of approximately... Oh, I have a typo. Hang on, let me fix my typo. Where do I find my pause button? Sorry about that. Let's try that again. A much shorter question, too. Using the graph, estimate the weekly earnings for sales of $1,500. So sales is right here. So I have to find $1,500. So this is 500, 1,000, 1,500. So I'm going to go there and I'm going to go up to this, and we're estimating. So that means we have to be in the right area, but not necessarily exact. And then I go over here, and it's definitely more than 250, because 250 is the least amount of money he can make. And that makes the next tick 300. So it's somewhere between $250 and $300. So my estimate is he will make about $275. Halfway between $250 and $300. All right, next question. Let's see if there's any typos here. Nope. Oh my gosh, it's not the last question. I do need a little bit of space, though. Don't know if I need that much, but it says if Kenji earns 10% on his weekly sales up to $2,000, then 12.5%, so it goes up, on weekly sales after $2,000, calculate Kenji's exact, so calculating the exact weekly earnings if he sells $7,238. So we have to reach back into our memories about percent. So he's going to make 10% of, and I'm going to do this in blue, of $2,000. So a reminder that 10% means 10 divided by 100 times 2,000. And that, calculator time, I need to calculate. 10 divided by 100 times 2,000 equals, it's going to get $200. Then, after $2,000, change color, after $2,000, he's going to get 12.5%. So we're going to have 12.5% of, and we're not going to put $7,238 here because we already gave him credit for $2,000. So he doesn't get credit for $2,000 here, another credit for $2,000 here. So I have to subtract off $2,000, the one we gave him credit for, which gives us this much. And that's what he's going to get the 12.5% on. And we're going to calculate this the same way. 12.5% divided by 100 times 5238 this time equals an amount of money. 12.5 divided by 100 times 5238 equals $654.75. So here's the deal. Kenji is not going to get $200, and he's not going to get $654.75. He's going to get both of them. Therefore, Kenji will make $854.75 that week. Maybe it's the week before Valentine's Day, where everybody goes out and shops. Maybe he works at a chocolate shop and it's right before Mother's Day or Easter. Maybe it's right before my birthday. Anyhow, the last question is identify a job that could have a wage plan similar to that shown on the graph, and why might an employer have a wage plan like this? So a place that would definitely have a wage plan like this, so not all places have wage plans like this, but they could, and that is back to our electronics stores, so like Best Buy, whatever kind of stores you call them, not hardware stores, technology stores, electronic stores might use this wage plan. Now, the next question is, guess why an employer would have a wage plan like this? Why would they give you a certain percentage for a certain amount of sales and then give you more percentage when you make more sales? And the reason is because they want their employees to work harder. So this plan makes employees, that's you, work harder to sell. It also means that employees are going to make more if they work harder, so it's actually quite a fair wage plan. All right, so the next thing you need to do is attack the one-sided sheet that is on the Google Classroom. And I apologize for this being a bit longer than regular. But finance is pretty important, and finance is money, and money is numbers.